This bit is blasts from the past. I'd like to talk about old classic movies. After watching the Expendables 2, I got a little bit to say about that, good and bad things. Because I just saw that for the first time Friday night when I bought it on Blu-ray. I was really impressed with all the actors in it because they're the guys I grew up with. Stallone, Willis, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, a little of Chuck Norris. If you're big into like Walker, Texas Ranger, the Delta Force, and the Missing in Action movies, I can see why you would like Chuck Norris, and I knew who he was. And I remember in WWE Survivor Series '94, during a Yokozuna match, he kicked the crap out of Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Anyway, Van Damme was good it had a really good career, like in Bloodsport and Time Cop. And after watching Van Damme movies, I was so pumped up to see him in the Expendables 2. And when I watched the Expendables 2 and afterwards, I thought, what a piece of shit performance on Van Damme's part. I don't know if it's the writers or if the fact that he was just too old. That's a lot of it too, because Van Damme really kicked some ass, and when I saw him face Stallone, I thought, boy, that wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. Meaning, on the best day of the week, any day of the week, on his best day, Van Damme, in my opinion, could kick the shit out of Stallone any day of the week. Not just him, but along with John Rambo, Ray Tango, and Rocky Balboa. I believe Van Damme could kick any of those guys' asses any day of the week. But the Expendables, it was the other way around, because Stallone is the good guy, and yet Van Damme, really didn't pretty much do anything. Kick a knife in a guy's throat and then give Stallone a few of his famous spin kicks, and then after that, Stallone chained him, choked him, punched him in the face a few times, and stabbed a knife right through his chest. I don't mean to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but if you're hoping to see Van Damme do a good performance in that, let me just say, you'll be very, very disappointed. And I don't know what's worse, that fight he had with Stallone or the fight he had with Raul Julia in Street Fighter, because they're both pieces of crap in my view. After Street Fighter, I don't think Van Damme pretty much done anything except for, Universal Soldier, The Return, Maximum Risk, and The Quest. And after Street Fighter, his career pretty much went down the toilet. But for all the Van Damme, guys like myself, Bloodsport and Time Cop, he beat some ass, like the fight between Bo Young, Chung Lee, and Van Damme in Bloodsport. Plus Cyborg, Van Damme's fight with Fender. Now that's a classic. Double Impact, he pretty much plays himself in the movie. He's both Chad and Alex, in Hong Kong. When I very first saw this movie, let me tell you, the hottest thing I ever saw at the time was Cory Everson, when she came out in that short black leather skirt to confront Van Damme's girlfriend in that office scene there, when she's going through the documents. When I first saw her, I was like, holy shit, what a woman. And then tell you what, she looks a lot hotter now on high definition than she did on the regular DVD version. Seeing her running around in Hong Kong in those blue shorts with that gun and that long, sexy red hair, that's worth seeing in that movie. She's a bombshell in that. Cory Everson should do another action movie like she did in Double Impact. She was hot. I'd like to see her go up against Schwarzenegger. Speaking of Arnie, in that Expendables 2, the best scene in my view is the scene where Schwarzenegger and Willis are together in that car. First Schwarzenegger rips the door off, and then he has that big ass gun, boom, 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 in that gunfight. That is so cool. I thought I'd never see that. Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger together in that fight scene together, and Schwarzenegger at one point, I'm out of bullets, I'll be back. No, you've been back long enough. I'll be back. Yippee-ki-yay. Going back to John McClane. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. That's a good movie too, Die Hard. And those are some of the Bruce Willis movies, like Die Hard and Last Man Standing, and you got like Striking Distance. Pulp Fiction is a badass movie where he's that boxer, and you got The Fifth Element where he goes up against Gary Oldman. That's a cool movie. The 12 Monkeys is weird in a cool way. And you got The Jackal. That was a badass movie until he dies, because he's the bad guy. But still, The Jackal is a good movie. The Last Boy Scout is cool and funny. We all know what Schwarzenegger's best movies are. The Terminators, the Conans. You got Commando with Rare Da Chung. I can't really pronounce her name, but the Playboy model. When I saw Schwarzenegger rip that door off, it reminded me of him in Commando tearing the seat out of her car. She's got a nice body, by the way, in Commando. I wonder how sexy the girl who played Schwarzenegger's daughter in that movie is now. Wasn't she in Double Dragon? She maybe, but she was like 10 in Commando. I remember the first time I saw the Terminator, I thought that was so cool. The best part is the police station. In number 2, effect-wise, that's badass, especially for 1991. I remember when we first saw that, we rented it, had it in the VCR at the time. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and when I saw that movie, I was kind of blown away by the special effects with the T-1000 when he's comes in that helicopter all like a liquid silver turd, and that part where he comes out of the elevator. To this day, I still think, that looks like the giant silver turd coming out of the ceiling, and for 1991, that did have some special effects that were cool like that. And whenever he got shot, it was like looking at a funnel like you used to pour oil in your car. Looked like one of those funnels came out every time he got shot, and I think that kind of helped pave the way for the effects they do now and in the bigger movies like the Avengers and some of those comic book movies like that, and the X-Men and the Batman movie. Speaking of Batman, the girl who played the Catwoman, I know her name right now, but I can't think of it. Anne Hathaway, maybe? Something like that, and she was so hot as the Catwoman. I loved the part where, she's doing something on the computer in that like nightclub restaurant type of place, running around in that tight leather dress with those long legs. She's pretty sexy in that movie. Better than Michelle Pfeiffer was back in the day. And going back to Van Damme, though, if you want to see a real badass fight, watch him fight Patrick Kilpatrick as the Sandman in Death Warrant. Now that's a classic, where he's beating the shit out of him in jail. That's a cool fight. Also in Lionheart, where he fights all those guys, that's a cool movie. All the street fighting in the movie with Attila, who reminded me of the late Andre the Giant, by the way, with his black outfit and his long hair and the shades. And with his hairstyle, and if he was a little more thinner. Ever play that game, Final Fight, or Street Fighter, the character Hugo, Andor in Final Fight, and Andor Jr.? I swear to God, Attila looks a lot like him. I wonder if that's where... I'm sure they got the idea from Andre the Giant, seeing this big guy running around with a chain on his side, and with leopard muscle shirts, the purple and the red. Andor and Andor Jr. That's who Attila definitely reminds me of, as Andor from those video games. And he became the character Hugo in the new Street Fighter series. He's in Street Fighter 3, and I think he's in one of the alpha games. One thing I always liked about Lionheart was Deborah Rennert, who plays Cynthia. She's got a nice body back then, and she was in that series Dallas at one time, and she was also hot in an episode in Silk Stockings, playing a sexy mistress kind of a person, a drug addict. That's one thing I like about those Stephen J. Cannell shows, like Joan's character and Wise Guy. You know, you got sexy, villains in there. Cindy Ambuel was in an episode in Silk Stockings, and I liked how she got arrested at the end in her bikini. When she was in a bikini in that movie, it's like, holy shit. If you want to see Cindy Ambuel looking her best, I recommend Meet Wally Sparks, where she's running around in a short skirt and a gun at the end. That's what makes movies great, when you got girls like Joan Severance, Cory Everson, Cindy Ambuel, even Ava Fabian in that Last Man Standing, hunting down the good guys with their guns and playing sexy, manipulative characters who likes to flirt with her man like Cindy does in Meet Wally Sparks with Randall. She's pretty hot in that movie. Van Damme was pretty good back then. Universal Soldier, I like at the end where he fought Dolph Lundgren. That's another must-see. In The Quest, I like the end part of The Quest the best because it reminds me of Bloodsport with all the street fighting and Lionheart. And I can't believe this movie's not on Blu-ray. One of his best movies ever, Hard Target, from 1993, directed by John Woo. In that movie, he just punches the lights out of Mr. Fusho, played by Lance Hendrickson in that movie, and hunting season is over, drops a grenade. Then he drops a grenade down his pants, and the rest pretty much explains itself. Arnold Vosloo was pretty cool as Pick in the movie. Rando. And he's also in an episode of 24. They should have kept going with that TV series, 24, with Jack Bauer, played by Kiefer Sutherland. I was surprised, Jack Bauer was such an asshole. Who are you working for? He's screaming at people, and I thought, boy, this is the guy who played Doc, the poet, in Young Guns, and, back then I always thought Kiefer Sutherland was like your common average pretty boy like Michael J. Fox was. And then he went on to play Jack Bauer, a real badass. And then season 5 was really good with Peter Weller, the guy who played RoboCop in the RoboCop movies. He was a good bad guy for him in season 5. I like that season the best in 24. They should have kept going with that series. But anyway, The Expendables 2, definitely a good movie, but if you're a big Van Damme buff, like I said earlier, you'll be disappointed because he really didn't fucking do anything, worth entertaining. Just kicked a knife in a guy's chest, and then he got his ass kicked by Stallone at the end. I still think Van Damme could kick Stallone's ass and Ray Tango and John Rambo and Rocky Balboa's ass any day of the week. That's just my opinion. Although, I think Steven Seagal has Van Damme's number if they ever went to a fight. But Jet Li and Seagal, that might be a good one because I think they're both well evenly matched. They should have had Jet Li face Van Damme in the movie. And Jet Li, was around in a lot more in the first movie than in the second one. In the first one, he had that fight with Dolph Lundgren. In the second one, all he did was just kill some guys, and that was pretty much the end of his character in the movie. I hope Stallone makes more of those kind of movies for guys like me, us action buffs. That's what made it so cool, was that gunfight with Schwarzenegger and Willis. Chuck Norris was involved, Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, Dolph had his good and bad days. I was surprised he got away with playing He-Man in that movie. Oh, remember that? He was He-Man in that movie. He was pretty cool in Rocky IV as the Russian. He's also been in other movies that I had never really seen or heard of. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on the Expendables and my thoughts on Van Damme and my Schwarzeneggers and Willises. I remember Bart Simpson saying to Milhouse, when Milhouse got to play the part for Fall Out Boy in the new Radioactive Man movie with McBain, if you want results, you got to go to the Schwarzeneggers, the Stallones, and for the less extent, the Van Dams. Well, at the time, Van Damme was, probably about a B average, and Stallone had his Rambo series going at the time, and Rocky was pretty popular. Hell, in 1984, he already had the first 4 Rocky series out, and Rambo 3 came out in 88, and then Tango and Cash in 90. I'm surprised. I wonder if Stallone asked, like, Kurt Russell, Mel Gibson. There's a lot of them he could have asked to be in those movies, like Kurt Russell and Mel Gibson, and a few other guys who were somewhat action buffs along those lines. Denzel Washington, Val Kilmer. And you got older guys like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro who couldn't play. Wesley Snipes, maybe. Woody Harrelson, doubtful. He's too old. Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes were good together in like Wildcats and White Men Can't Jump, Money Train. Kingpin was Woody Harrelson's claim to fame with hottie Vanessa Angel at the time. I think she might have been in Playboy too. And then you got, I'm sure I can think of some more, but I'm not going to waste your time or my time trying to think of all the greats that Stallone may or could have asked. Probably not Steven Seagal. He's too old, and I think he's probably too arrogant, for one. So that's pretty much it for Blast from the Past. So we'll see you again in my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.